my Minecraft Forever world, one of the most important things to me is small details. So that's why today I'm going to be farming a bunch of different items that I use to help create them. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next video. Enjoy. Hello everyone, welcome to episode 2 of my Forever world. And this week on stream, I've been terraforming this area to prepare it for a little town that's going to be used to farm these 8 items. On stream, I farmed a bunch of materials that I'm going to be using to make this town, and I'm kind of just doing this off the top of my head. I'm not designing it in creative, I'm not using schematics, nothing like that. Just kind of going with the flow. That's how I usually build, is I just bring a bunch of materials that I have around to each new build site, and then I just use what I have while occasionally picking up some new items. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to collect a bunch of stone and then start making outlines for the buildings to see where I want them and start laying down pathways. Think across the span of this land, I'm going to have 4 buildings, each of them having 2 of the items I want to farm. So one building might have pink petals and wildflowers, another with firefly bushes and sea pickles, another with hanging roots and glowberries, and another with vines and glow lichen, just kind of items that are similar to each other. So let's get started on those outlines. Now that we have our 4 main outlines for our buildings, I'm going to go through and determine where my path is going to be. When I'm building these outlines, I make sure to show where the doorways are going to be so I know where to connect them up to my path. So I have this main path coming down from this bridge down here, and it splits off here. One building here with this doorway. It comes up. I'm probably going to remove this part of the terrain. Comes over here. There's a doorway here, which will have a stairway in this building that connects up to that doorway, which will connect this back door of this building to this front door of this building. I think I want to have each of these buildings have one kind of correlating block or build design choice, and I think I'm going to use a strong dark base for each of them with my blackstone and deep slate. So obviously, since this building's kind of on the smaller side, we can't have as much of a base, but I think just a deep slate base with some blackstone on the corners should look pretty good in solidifying this building into this kind of style we have going here. I think something that's important is not having all your buildings look the same, and kind of the way I do that is usually on the roof design. If I have a building that looks very similar to one of my other buildings in terms of the window design or wall palette or anything like that, I'll make sure to add a cool different roof on top of it just to kind of solidify it as its own building. I think for this building, I'm going to go with the firefly bushes and the sea pickles. So I'm going to go for more of a bluey, watery theme on the block palette. Something that's very important in building is making sure you have a light source. So for me, usually my light source is just set above the building. It's not really a real light source, just sort of an imaginary light source. So something I can base my building off of to make sure there's a shadow under overhangs or anything like that, just to add depth to the building where there isn't actually depth in the blocks. So I bought some of these darker terracotta blocks to kind of add where I know my roof is going to be, to just emphasize a shadow. It doesn't even matter if it's the same color or not. Honestly, it looks good no matter what if you just kind of try to make sure there's a light source. So now that my walls are in, I'm gonna pick a color for the roof. I think I want to also unify this dark base with the roof trim. I think that could look really nice, and then I could throw in a different tone for the actual roof itself. So now I've got this roof trim in, I think I'm gonna go for the actual roof itself, and then I'll start on some details, and then obviously the interior. I think I'm gonna do all the farms last. Okay, so our roof is in. I'm really liking the blue to orange contrast we have here, and it definitely ties in those darker spots under the overhang. So I'm really liking our block palette so far. And now I'm gonna go in for some details. To tie in those browns we got from our roof, I'm going to use spruce accents, such as the doorway and the window framing. And now adding some mangrove doors and windows I think is really going to add on to that connection we have here between the warm tones in the roof and the cool tones in the building. Now I'm going to make some more coarse dirt and kind of just connect this pathway up from our main path to this building. Now that the exterior is done and the path is kind of going into our town, I'm going to designate this building as firefly bushes and sea pickles. Now moving on to that next building, I'm going to go for this building just right next to the other one, and we're going to continue that theme of the black stone and deep slate base. So here I'm just going to put it on the corners and continue the same kind of palette we had before. So now that our base is done, and this building had more of a contrasting theme with the warms and the cool colors, I think I'm just going to go for more of a neutral gray theme. So I'm going to use our stone bricks, andesite, anything like that, just to kind of fill in the walls. So now that we've got our main walls in, you can see I kind of textured with the deep slate, and then I used coal ore to kind of go between the dark tones from our overhang shadows to our lighter tones of stone just from our normal wall. And I think it looks good, but it'll definitely look better once all the details are on, and it'll definitely look better from further away, just to kind of help blend in those dark tones to the lighter tones. And I think something else that'll help go between this base dark layer and this lighter top layer is the new shelf. So I'm gonna make a bunch of those and we'll see how it looks. I think the shelf looks really good here, and it's definitely a nice divider between the layers. So I think I'm gonna keep that in. And now I'm gonna start working on the roof area. I think again, I am gonna tie in this deep slate and kind of dark roof theme we've got going on here. So let's get started on that. I'm actually gonna take a different step than last time and go in with our details on the doorways and windows. And I think a good way to do that and tie in the dark base and top is with dark oak. Now that I've kind of finished the roof and the details, I'm going to add the same mangrove door that we did with the other building, just to add that final step of unity. So now walking up from our pathway here, we can see this building, and then we turn to our left and we see this building. I do think there is something missing on this, so I'm going to go add another little detail to the roof. Okay, so after adding this little roof window, I think we can call this building complete. Now moving on to our third building, we're going to start again with the base. For this building, I think I'm going to make the walls out of logs and kind of make the roof less of a steep roof and more of just like a flat slab roof, just because of how tall it already is. So now that I've got the walls in, I'm kind of planning out how I want the roof to be like. I think a flat roof here with kind of an arch over here would look nice, and then having our arch on this side of the top portion. So we have a nice flat division part, and then a nice arch on the top with our chimney. I think will look really nice. So now that I've got this roof kind of wrapping around, I started this top part, and I think this lighter tone of wood, similar to what we had going on with this roof, is looking really nice, and I think it'll look even nicer once we add the details. So let's get started on that. Alright, now after adding the finishing touches, I think this building is looking pretty good. I've got the red roof to tie into the mangrove door that we've gotten on all of our buildings. And then I use these copper grates to tie into that blue that we had on our original building. And I think it looks really nice with the chimney added in. Now that I forgot to do this on the other building, I'm going to designate this one as cherry blossoms and wildflowers, and this next one as glowberries and hanging roots. But before we get started on our fourth and final building, I am going to connect this pathway to this third building here. Now that our pathway is connected up, I can start on the fourth building. Okay, now for the final time, we're going to go in with our blackstone and deep slate base. I really like the block palette we had on that first building, so I think I'm just going to go back to that same thing and kind of replicate it on this last one here. Now that I've thrown the walls on and started a roof trim, I can start to kind of go in with the same details that we did on this one over here. Spruce accents, and I'm thinking I'm just going to go for the same mangrove windows. I might throw in a little bit of a different roof though. I ended up going with more of a neutral roof, keeping that same light gray terracotta that I used from this one, but just going for more of a gray gradient rather than a brown gradient. And now I'm just adding in some roof support and some kind of details that'll just fill up the space. Okay, I just put the finishing touches on. This is going to be the vine and glow lichen building, and now we can see what it looks like from afar. Now our village is complete. I think the buildings look really good, and I like the unity we have between all the block palettes. Now I'm going to go in and make the farms for each of the different items. So now that the buildings are all done, I went in and I made all the farms for the different items. So in here we have cherry blossom and wildflower. You click this lever and it spits them out. And this is all fueled from my bone meal farm down in the downtown area. This one, firefly bushes, you flick the lever, they grow, and you break them. The sea pickles is a little tricky. You just place them down and then press the button, and it grows 4 of them. So. Then, this building, we have our vines and our glow lichen. Vines, there's not really a good way to farm them, so I just put a bunch here that I can harvest with these shears. And then here I have a glow lichen farm where it'll grow the glow lichen. And I can harvest it pretty easily like this. None of the farms are really fully automatic, but they're nicer than just collecting them on the fly. So here's hanging roots and glowberries. So just do this and do this. And there you go. This one's probably the fastest out of all of them. So I think we can call this area a success. If you guys liked the video, make sure to subscribe. And I collected all these materials on live, so tune into that, and I'll see you guys next time.